Also happening in Washington, lawmakers facing a Friday deadline before a government shutdown.
And from a debt ceiling increase to an infrastructure bill, Republicans and Democrats seem unable to agree on much of anything.
Political reporter Rick Albin's been talking to some of the Michigan delegation about just that. Rick.
Yeah, it's not just Republicans and Democrats, it's even Democrats and Democrats. I talked to two Republicans over the weekend, both Congressmen Bill Huizenga and Peter Meijer, and they both have concerns about some of those plans that are currently being looked at in the House. One is a physical infrastructure bill that's a little over $1 trillion, and that one would deal with some more of the more common infrastructure, roads and bridges. And there's another that deals with what's called social infrastructure, and that's got a considerably larger price tag, even though it will come down from the $3 trillion it started out for, at least according to Speaker Nancy Pelosi. When I talked with Congressman Huizenga, he said that the future of those bills depends a lot on approach from his standpoint. What's the reality of the kind of money that the legislature is willing to spend when it comes to infrastructure?
Good question. It depends on whether they really truly make it a bipartisan bill or whether they continue down this hyper-partisan track. Right now, it's a hyper-partisan track.
Congressman Meijer says the smaller infrastructure bill may be close to being put together, but as for the other one,
the $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation, massive partisan preference wish list item. I mean, it changes on an hourly basis what's in this thing depending on whose vote is needed to get it to pass. The only thing I'm confident about in that bill is that it's not good.
And for Flint Democrat Dan Kildee, he's the chief deputy whip for the Democrats. He says that he thinks the most pressing issue is making sure that the current spending limits are raised. He says he thinks that that smaller infrastructure bill can go through, still wants to negotiate on the larger one, but he says when it comes to paying the bills for the United States government, you don't politicize that.
You know, this place is far too partisan. Rick, you and I have talked about this in the past. Some issues are naturally partisan. Some shouldn't be. And whether or not the United States government meets its obligations, pays its debts, no matter how we got to the point, both parties contributed to creating this debt, no question about it. We ought not make it a political tool to try to undermine a president or a party. We ought to just pay our bills.
The Senate has already failed once to raise that debt ceiling limit. The Treasury says that the country will run out of the ability to borrow money and pay its bills by sometime in mid-October. Back to you.